I'm Jim Check. You're watching Kelowna Now. Today with me, Liz Sage from Team Fitness, and we're doing our regular fitness column. Today we have a really interesting topic. How do you train, or how do you, as your body changes, as you go through menopause, obviously there's different requirements for the body in training. What is it that you have to do differently?
Well, first of all, you have to recognize that you are changing and that it's happening. I think that that's a big part of accepting that we're going through something different with our bodies. And certainly women are experiencing all kinds of different symptoms in perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. And so accepting the fact that we're there is one of the first steps in making change, doing things
for the guys out there, even for myself, can you tell me those three stages: peri, menopause, and then postmenopause? Like what, and how long does that typically take, or is it different for a whole bunch of people?
It can vary depending on the person. So you can start menopause as early as 36 years of age. The average is around 45, and there's a perimenopause is that point at which your cycles are fluctuating. So you're no longer having,
regular cycles,
a 28-day cycle, and it can vary all kinds of ways. And then menopause is actually a day in time. It's 1 calendar year after your last cycle.
So it's actually that you had your cycle. It's a year later, and that's officially into menopause.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you'll go through menopause, experience all kinds of different
hot flashes, cold, all that.
Yes, some people do. Yeah. Some people don't. So there's many different symptoms that come out of that. What have you heard in terms of? You've heard hot flashes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else?
Back pain. I don't know if those are related or not.
Yeah, can be. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Irritability.
Which is
mood, I guess. Right?
Yeah. So I think just like mood swings potentially.
Yeah. Mood swings for sure, and then just in the hot flashes and the turn the heat up, turn the heat down.
Yes, there can be inflammation of the body. Muscle soreness, stiffness, joint stiffness, brain fog. Headaches. There's a variety of different things, and what because we're learning more and more about menopause now than ever, because we have more women researchers studying menopause and studying them on women, and trying to get as much information as they can from the women who are actually going through it, and doing more longitudinal studies. Then we're hearing all kinds of other things that we never really thought were part of menopause symptoms showing up. Right, so lots of different symptoms can be.
So if you regularly train, like you work out all the time, so what do you have to do to adapt your kind of like your training style?
Well, the first thing to really remind our listeners is that as we age, it is more important, particularly women who are going through menopause and postmenopause, as we are aging through that change of life, we are no longer able to synthesize muscle from our hormones. Right, or very little, because we are losing estrogen. So that's what's happening is our estrogen and our progesterone are starting to decline as we age and go through menopause. And the interesting thing about that is it's the fact that they're both declining would seem like that would be a good thing. They're declining together, but they don't decline in unison, right? So the ratios are what's causing all these different symptoms. If the ratios stayed the same as they were potentially before menopause, then we might not experience the symptoms and the erraticness of the symptoms that we do menopause. So they don't decline at the same rate, and that is why a lot of the symptoms show up. So, but the important hormone here is estrogen, estradiol 2, which is the main hormone for women, like testosterone for men, that help to synthesize muscle, right? Besides all kinds of other things that it does, that's an important factor. And as we age, it's really important that we try to maintain, first of all, build as much muscle as we can. So all of you young women out there who are strength training now, good on you. Keep doing it, because that's what you need. You want to form as much muscle as you possibly can.
Like a better
Absolutely.
Base, right?
As much as you can, so that when you get into the stages where you start to decline your estrogen 2, then you have this rock solid base that you can work on sustaining. Because in postmenopause and menopause, it's really difficult to build new muscle. You can do it, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of consistency. You need to be eating, you know, well, and you need to be eating your protein to be able to lay down new muscle. So even in that perimenopause stage, you're still able to put down muscle, but when you hit menopause, post-menopause, it's really, really difficult. So estrogen 2, estradiol is declining, and it can decline as early as 36 years of age.
Is there supplements that a person can take to kind of like fend off some of these?
Yeah, absolutely. So what was once called hormone replacement therapy, I mean, they still call it that, but really when we get to the stages of perimenopause, it's hormone therapy. And so women can take progesterone and estrogen to offset some of these symptoms that they're experiencing because they're losing their levels of estrogen. Yeah.
And muscle is so important to a healthy life, like a health span too, right? As opposed to just a lifespan. Lifespan obviously is, you know, as long as you live, but a health span is much more important.
And we've talked about that many times in the work we've done together on these podcasts. And that is about the quality of your life. So with the more muscle mass that we have, we are warding off frailty in our latter years. Where, the more muscle we have means that we're applying stress to our body to maintain and grow the muscle. Therefore, our bones are also being stressed, which means we're going to have less porous bones as we age as well. So as women continue to weight train and work on strength, not only does their strength increase, their muscle also can increase. Again, it's more difficult the older you are, the later you are in menopause to do that. But in addition, they are doing great things to sustain bone health, right? Mitochondrial function, which is, really important to, for everything from insulin sensitivity.
Gut flora kind of thing.
That too. Yeah. But also mitochondria is responsible for our power, our force. So the healthier our mitochondria is, which is going to be stimulated by strength training, then, the better we are at agility, speed, balance, if we fall over, we catch ourselves, or if we're, if we have to, sprint quickly, just catch a bus or, to go after a grandchild, who's like heading for the pool.
Yep. Slipping on that the step on the snowy, icy.
Yes, anything like that. But just anything where, that powerful force. And we need that even to pick up something heavy off the floor and put it on a shelf or put a suitcase on the top of, a bin overhead. Right. So those kinds of things. So again, the decline of this hormone, several hormones, is something that we need to be aware of first. So knowing about menopause and what's happening to your body, is really great information and good knowledge to have so that you get an understanding of why you need to do things differently in terms of your exercise.
Yeah, and muscle, I mean, you see all this stuff on the internet, and they're talking about muscle can fend off other sicknesses or diseases as well, just by having a healthier body. It kind of replaces cell structure and all that kind of.
Absolutely, yeah, no question. Yeah, so the whole thing with training then, as we get into this new change in life, is that we're needing to lift heavier resistance. So the old style of training for women typically has been sculpting. So high repetitions and of weight, high repetitions.
More tone kind of thing, right?
Yeah, toning, tonicity, the sculpting of the shape of the arms and legs, etc., and being lean.
Because a lot of women try to avoid any muscularity.
Yeah, and that's how it's been pitched
vascular,
for a very long time.
And
even if you go into still some gyms, there's kind of like the cardio area and the way it looks, it's more feminine and sort of attract the females in this direction, and then you go into the other direction, and it's like, again, this isn't everybody, but they're still out there where it's the men are on one side and the women are on the other side, right? But it's great to see so many women now getting into the weight room and feeling comfortable and confident, and the men are welcoming them in as well. It's not like they're
saying you can't come
segregating them. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But at the same time, that's been kind of the culture. The culture is women in cardio, men in the weight room. So now we're starting to see that more and more researchers are women and are getting funded as well. So a lot more of the funding is coming our way for research for women, and particularly women in menopause. So there's been a huge movement over the last probably 3 to 5 years where the education is just coming now into the media, right? And lots of women are starting to ask the questions, which is tremendous because, they've been fed this other information for a very long period of time. And because a lot of the studies in the past have been done on men around exercise and so on, and then it's just sort of transferred to women. So if this was going on for men, then it should be fine for women. But what we've learned now is that no, we're not small men. And that actually is a phrase that's been coined by a researcher, Dr. Stacey Sims. And she's done a lot of her PhD work and working with her students around menopause and working on weight training and nutrition for women.
So what is the nutritional, when you're talking about that postmenopausal stage? Should a person change their kind of nutritional habits, or?
Well, one of the things that women can change nutritionally is to really think about the quality of their nutrition. So, nutritious, dense food and upping their protein.
Yeah, so like eggs would be dense.
Eggs are dense in protein for sure. 50% is protein, definitely. Yeah.
And then like cottage cheese and those
cottage
kind of things.
cheese, Greek yogurt, all of your meats, chicken, like lean meats, chicken, lean beef, salmon, but you can also get protein through plant-based sources as well. You just have to work a lot harder, and it's not as well.
And eggs is usually that kind of that in-between one for people that are kind of vegetarians, because a lot of them still do eggs, so then you can kind of use eggs as
lacto-ova.
Kind of like that bridge, that thing, instead of like doing, because a lot of the vegan foods tend to be high in sugar.
They can be, but they don't have to be.
Right.
You can do it. You just have to work harder. Just like if you were wanting
spend more money and work harder.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. But I know many athletes who are strong athletes still competing, and they're vegans.
Yeah, and so, I could always point to a gorilla. He just eats plants. He's got some pretty big muscles.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
I wouldn't fight a gorilla.
No. So yes, so that would be one of the things in terms of looking at your nutrition components and making sure that you do have adequate protein, because just by taking protein, so they have done a study where they took sedentary people and they divide them into two groups. One group, they gave the sample a higher protein diet, and the other just their regular diet. And over a course of
potato chips,
6 to 8 weeks, possibly, the group that had more protein, without even doing any additional exercise routines of any kind, it was just the diet that they were looking at, they actually gained muscle in that period. Yeah. So we know that eating protein can synthesize
muscle. What we
muscle.
eat is definitely a large part of what we are.
Yeah, we are what we eat. Actually, that's a good statement for sure. So that would be one of the main things in terms of that. And here's the thing. So I work with all kinds of women, and a lot of women, who are 45 plus. And one of the things that I hear when I start to tell them how much protein would be, preferable for them to eat in order for them to, as they're now strength training with me, to actually synthesize that muscle, lay down muscle tissue, and maintain the muscle that they have, so that they're not catabolizing their own muscle when they're working out. Right. And they're like, how can I possibly eat that 100 grams of protein? And I'm like, the only reason why you can't is because you've been conditioned not to. It just has been the way you've eaten before. But as soon as you start to look at, let's say you have 3 meals and a snack in those 4 meals, the first question you ask is, what's the protein in this meal? Then it just starts to get you educated and thinking. And a lot of them just don't know what they don't know. And so once they know it, they're like, oh yeah, like it's way easier than I thought it was going to be. But you do have to pay attention.
I obviously work for the egg lobby.
I was going to say, yeah, the egg man.
Because
8 eggs a day.
Because I use that, because like I've put on muscle in the last while, especially training with you. I've put on muscle, but a lot of that has come from knowing that you need to, because I was stuck plateaued. We talked about that in one of the episodes. Yeah, is putting more fuel in, and I found the easiest way to put more fuel in is to put more eggs in, right? Because then I can, as a snack, I'll just eat eggs, and I'll put eggs in a smoothie, and I'll put
for sure,
and I'll And so that I'll still eat kind of the regular stuff, because I can't eat steak every day. Like
No, of course not.
it
No, you're not
feels
going
really
to.
like heavy.
Yeah.
And then, but eggs, I can,
Yeah.
I can eat. So I mean, whatever you can find that is a high, like you said, dense protein.
Dense protein.
And
Dense
then
calories.
I don't know. Like sometimes shakes upset my stomach. Sometimes like the protein powder. Sometimes
Yeah.
they do. Sometimes
So let's
they
talk
don't.
about that, because I do get that question asked a lot. Like, should I be supplementing? I'm like, well, yes, that's the protein powder is a supplement, and so if you need to, then protein supplement can be a good thing for you to do. However, whole foods first. If you can have all 4 of your meals, 3 with a snack, that are whole foods, and you're getting your protein in that way, then that's great. And so, when you say your go-to is eggs, well, my go-to is cottage cheese and Greek yogurt.
We put them in a smoothie, all 3 of those, and I've done that. It's really good.
It is.
It's really good.
It is. Now that's high.
People say cottage cheese in a
high on
smoothie.
the dairy. That's high on the dairy. And some people are dairy intolerant. So you have to, for people who are challenged by that, it is more challenged for sure. Yeah. But supplementing is okay, but it should not be your mainstay. You really want to make sure that you're looking for whole foods.
I find this as like a protein shake or whatever, like a quick way to get like some nourishment and some protein without, struggling to eat it or whatever. Because I think a lot of people have a tough time eating breakfast too, right? Like a lot of people that just aren't hungry. Mm-hmm. And one day we'll talk about that Ozempic, because I think that's, because a lot of people can't eat breakfast. And they might be eating into their muscle mass while they're, like they wait till noon to eat too.
Yeah, right? That's that catabolizing the muscle, right? So, so one thing that you can do is, if you're not up and make your breakfast kind of morning, but getting something into, particularly for women, getting something in within the first 30 minutes of waking is a good thing, because that's going to help lower your cortisol levels.
Not just coffee with cream.
Well, you could actually put a scoop of protein powder in your coffee.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, and
chunky coffee.
The only thing is that you want to shake
it's kind of like a latte
first. Yeah, you shake the protein first in some
water,
some milk or water,
otherwise
just because you want to break it down. Otherwise, it's going to congeal.
Curdle and kind of like chunky.
Yeah. So shake the heck out of it, and then
you like tapioca
put your
pudding
coffee over top. So that can be a good start, and that's actually a good start to fuel your workout. To be able to have 15 grams of protein before you work out. Gone are the days for fasted workouts. Yeah. It's not a great idea, and the reason being is cortisol levels are going to get higher, and they're just going to go higher and higher as you work out. So we want to stabilize that cortisol. We want to have some protein in our our bloodstream, so that we can actually go to that protein instead of breaking down the protein that we already have as a source of fuel, right? It's going to be broken down because we're exercising hard, but we also don't want to be using it as fuel to get through that workout.
That food, whoops, that wasn't me. The food is one of the most important things that we do, right? It's so important, and building that base in the morning is so important. Then obviously if you can exercise at that time too, that'd be great, right?
Yeah. And not everybody can work out in the morning. And sometimes sleep, so for women in menopause, sleep is a big deal. And your sleep is responsible for so much of your results, your outcomes. The resting is really important because you are hopefully going to train hard. And so let's get into a little bit more of the actual training itself. Sure. So like I said, that long, slow endurance kind of work, run long and slow, because women have been sort of conditioned in that cardio aspect because of staying lean, losing body fat, and so on, and
burning calories,
exactly. And so when we're in menopause, we are now seeing that kind of training is not effective to help us, because in menopause we can not everybody, but a large majority of women will complain about belly fat, that they're gaining weight and it's going directly to their abdomen, right? And so that could be for the reason of the estrogen 1, all right, and drawing your extra calories and body fat to the abdomen. And so what we want to do now is we want to be careful about the cardiovascular training that we're doing. And sometimes what happens is the cardio is too slow to be hard and too hard to be slow. Too hard to be easy. So easy to be hard and too hard to be easy, right? So we want to be want to polarize those two areas. So we want to work either really hard or not so hard at all. All right. So the long and slow is more like under 70% of the maximum heart rate. So 7 out of 10 or less. Okay. And that also helps us recover from the harder days that we're going to work, which are short and hard. So that's that high intensity training. And also sprint intensity training is now been shown in these new studies to be really beneficial for women going through menopause, right? And so, and then particularly post-menopause, we want to even ramp those up even more days per week. So the sprint intensity training, there's lots of people going, well, like you want, 50, 60, 70-year-old women sprinting. And so the idea is they don't have to go out there and actually sprint, the track or
put
whatever.
The track shoes on. And
but if they're runners, then they're going to be, and they have been running, they're going to be conditioned to be able to sprint. And they can gradually train themselves to run faster for short bouts of time.
Slow, fast.
Yeah. So a hard sprint, but for very short. And we're talking like 15 to 30 seconds, right? And then recovering and then repeating those upwards of, 10 repetitions. Okay. So that's the sprint. That also can be done. I'm a mountain biker, so I get to do that when I mountain bike almost pretty much every ride, because you're always
you go
having
up a hill
to
or
hit these
something
pinches.
like that, right?
Yeah. So now I actually work even harder, to be sprinting up those hills as much as I can. And then when I get to the top of the hill, if I can, I just cruise if there's a flat sort of, place to go from there. Or sometimes I will literally just stop at the top, let my heart rate come back down again, because I know like not very far away, I have another sprint to go. And if I just sort of pulled back and rode up those hills, I'd be in that zone 3-4 where it's too easy to be hard for the hit or sit and too hard to be easy in that lower intensity. So I'm not getting that polarization. And sometimes I just go out to ride because I love to ride and I'm going to be in those zones and that's just the way it is. But when I specifically am going to train and I'm using a ride as part of my training for these particular systems that I want to work in, which is really what we need to pay attention to, then I'm going to change the way my ride looks so that I can, in fact, get these higher intensity training methods into play. Right.
Makes sense.
So that's the cardio, and then the longer and slower we're using for recovery and also free fatty acid burning. So and also being able to burn and metabolize adipose tissue in the abdomen, right? Body fat in the abdomen. So those are the sort of the rationale behind those things, and we really want to try and change our brain, because our thinking, it's really hard for women to do. I work with a ton of women and they look at me and they're like going like, I just can't swallow that Kool-Aid right now. I'm like, okay, let's just like start something and just start to make a little bit of a change and see how it goes. And women are finding that not only when they do the HIIT training are they seeing different results in terms of utilizing sources of fat as a source for fuel, but they're also stronger and more powerful in their workouts and in their sports. When they're riding now, they're more powerful because they are doing these short, strong intervals. And then as a result, they're changing their levels of cortisol. They're also, when they work that hard, they're actually adapting to cortisol. So they're conditioning, just like a muscle, a bicep curl, the muscle gets conditioned and eventually you can do heavier work. Well, when you push yourself, your heart rate up to a point where you are producing lactate or inflammation, then your body adapts to the lactate and it adapts to the inflammation so that when you experience it other places, it handles it so much better because you're pushing yourself and you're conditioning yourself. And therefore we have lower levels of cortisol as a result. When we get stresses from other things, we're able to run longer, faster without, having to break down and stop. And our insulin sensitivity is a really big thing about these higher interval trainings sessions. We are now much more insulin resistant as a result of that as well, which is critical for women in menopause. We want to make sure that we are, helping it helps our mitochondria transport the glucose into the muscle cells, and high intensity training helps do that.
So what about weight training then
So here's the big kicker. So because the toning before, the culture of, toning and sculpting, women would lift, light to moderate weights, high frequency, high reps. Okay.
Yeah.
And, maybe two sets. Okay. And now what we're seeing is we want to lift heavy for you. So we wouldn't take, somebody who's just starting off lifting weights and start them with this right away. We would start them actually like that. We would start them with high repetitions because what we're trying to do is we're trying to increase the integrity of the joints, get good form, have them the adaptations for them to know what they're doing, proprioception, kinesthetics, all of that. But when they are feeling like they are more confident in their movement and they are looking good in terms of their technique, then we want to start to lower down the reps and try to build up the weight that they're lifting in terms of the size of the weight and lower the repetitions. But then we're going to do more volume. So instead of 1 or 2 sets, we're actually doing 4 or 5 sets. Right? You could do 5, like eventually, and again, not right away. And then when
you get to the end, to failure too?
So we have to be careful with the failure because that risks injury, right? Mm-hmm. And particularly at the stage of life where you're 50 plus, we don't really want to challenge injury because you want to live well and have the freedoms and
pull your shoulder.
Yeah,
or something
and you don't
like
want to have
that.
this relapse of like, oh, now I can't do anything.
Yeah.
So that's why it's critical to have that introductory period where you're adapting and you're learning and you're getting good results with technique. You're being supervised, and then eventually, once you have all of that down, then we start to change that. And so, in terms of fatigue, we want to go to fatigue because we want to overload the muscles, but what we don't want to do is go to the point where we can't actually pick up that last repetition because that's when we risk injury. So always leave 2 in the tank, right? Particularly if there's no one around to spot you. You can be challenged a little bit more if you're working with a partner or with a coach. But the idea is we want to go to overload, and we need to do that so to grow the muscle and to stimulate growth hormone and all kinds of other things that are going to be great for us in this next stage of life. Yeah. So we want to lift heavy for you, right? So heavy for you and heavy for me are 2 different things, okay? First of all, because of gender, and you should be able to lift heavier, but also because of experience and stage of life, and so all those things, and fitness level.
And how long you've been doing it.
Fitness level, yeah. All right? So if someone comes to me and they've already been training, and I'm now working with them to modify, to help them change their patterns of training, then what I'm going to do is and have a completely different sort of graduation for them to go into those heavier weights than somebody who's really inexperienced, has never strength or weight trained, but has been really active. In fact, I have somebody right now. So they don't have a lot of experience, but they've been active biking, hiking, pickleball, recreational athlete, and has been athletic, in their early years as well. But no strength training, no weight training. So now, them learning these movements, they're athletic, so they're getting movements a lot better than somebody who'd be really inexperienced in activity from there. So you have no activity, sedentary person coming in as a newbie. Then you have somebody who is recreational athletic, but no strength training. So their programs are going to be different in terms of when they're going to start the heavy lifting. And then you or me who've been training for a long time, right? Yeah. So the idea then is you really have to know where are you starting, and then let's decide from there when you're going to make the move to lifting heavy. And so then we do have to lift heavy. So we're lifting heavy to that fatigue level of 2 in the tank left, and we're reducing the number of reps. So we're more in that power, 5 to 7 reps as opposed to 15 plus for sculpting, and then 8 to 12, is more bodybuilding, right, and laying down sinew. So really working on some power for these women who are going to, maintain their muscle and also get strong. And it doesn't take a lot of time to see strength changes.
Yeah. And your body needs a little bit of shock though too, right? Like a little bit of like adversity for it to make change, right? So that's what that weight training is all about.
The adaptation.
You kind of shock it. So if you're doing the same routine all the time, because I know that I've been working out downstairs for about 5 years, and I kind of plateaued. And then after working with you, I moved past that plateau, right, by doing different things to shock the body a bit, right? Yeah.
So variability. So what you're referencing is a plateau, and yes, and it doesn't happen to everybody, but it does happen to people. And we also have a genetic window of building muscle. Like you eventually you build the muscle to a point where you can't build it anymore. It's not like you just keep growing and growing and growing your muscle.
I'm just going to change my body
you
at
are
that
limited,
point, right?
You're limited to some degree.
AI is coming. It's working.
AI is coming. You keep reminding me. Yes. So the idea is, this is you can't just train and then it's not a destination, right? It's a continual journey. It's
no, for sure.
Once you start to strength train, if you want to be strong, capable, and confident, agile, and flexible and mobile in your aging years, so that you are independent and can do the fun stuff better.
Again, health span, right?
Right. That's health span, quality of life.
If you want to do that bike ride up Knox, if you want, do those things instead of having to see it out of a car and somebody has to put you in the car.
Yeah, or a walker.
Yeah.
There's that, right? So so it allows us independent living for a lot longer in our life, where we're doing things for ourselves. Because I think that's one of the biggest fears that I hear is like and I have it myself. Like I don't want to have to burden my kids to take care of me. I want to be able to take care of myself, and I also want to do the fun stuff better. That's kind of my own motto. It's like, that's why I train weights. First of all, I want the things that I do already to not feel so daunting, climbing a mountain bike pitch that I've done for, decades. And then, all of a sudden it's, things are changing. If I'm not keeping up my strength work, it's going to be hard and it's not going to be fun. Like
better to go to Hawaii and do the stuff like the hikes and all that stuff instead of just drive around on a tour bus.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So that's your choice.
Way more fun. More fun. Yeah,
for
sure. So. Right. So that's the biggest change is that, lifting heavy weights, heavy for you. Right. So, you're going to lift 50, I'm going to lift 30, someone else is going to lift 20, someone else is going to lift 10. Right. But it's heavy for that person, so, our mothers and are going to lift, a whole lot less, but, 10 pounds for them might be heavy. Right. That may be different for us, and then again, same for inexperienced people.
I found one of the things for sure is sometimes, like especially for men. I don't know, we're talking about men here, but like ego-based lifting. So where they'll just they think they have to do the whole stack, and then the form is completely wrong, and obviously that's when you get injured too.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. And we see this also with women too, and particularly because there is sort of this new information coming into the media, and a lot of women asking questions, or a lot of women just hearing something and going, okay, well now I have to lift heavy. So they immediately go into the gym and they pick up heavy stuff and they start to lift and then they get hurt, right? Yeah. So again, it's not about, just starting with heavy weights. It's starting with, learning and knowing what you're doing, but also then lifting heavy for you with a program that's been, that it's being applied to where you are in your stage of life. So, still women who are reproductive, they can still do, those, higher reps and lighter weights and 2 or 3 rounds of those. They can also, work on, building muscle right through to perimenopause. And again, you can still do that through menopause. It's just a whole lot harder. And the other factor here is consistency, right? If you show up consistently average and you are lifting heavy for you, right? The outcomes will be far reaching than just crushing it once in a while. Oh, I should go do a workout.
Compounding.
Yeah. Yes, like we talked about.
The power of compounding, right? And anything finances. In life, the power of compounding, right?
It works with money and it works with fitness, right?
Works with just your mindset, right?
Yes, it does too.
It works with anything, right? Just little, I think we were talking about today, it's like just the only goal that people, if you have a mission statement, be better than you were yesterday. Yeah. That's it, right? Evaluate yesterday. How do I be better? You don't have to compete with. I don't have to compete with you. You don't have to compete with me.
That's right.
Just compete with yourself and be better than you were yesterday.
Yeah, and I think we also have to have a little bit of leniency on that because sometimes people are too hard on themselves, right? And if they're not better tomorrow than they were today,
pain is weakness leaving the body. That's what my coach said.
Okay, stop. No, you also sometimes have to meet yourself with your at, and this is one of the things that I tell. Tell my members is that you just show up, right? Just show up, and if you don't have a lot in the tank, we're going to meet you where you're at. So you're going to do what's left in the tank, and you're going to feel better for it. And that typically happens. People will leave. I'm glad I came. Yeah. It was hard, and I said yes, but you can get easy at home. Yeah. Right?
Sometimes the toughest wait is just the front door.
That's right. Yeah. Who'd you hear that from?
I think you.
And the other piece of that is that when you show up consistently, you don't really know what day it is that you actually had change, or you got stronger, or you feel better, right? It didn't happen on that day, on that hour, on that month, right? It just, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm lifting like double my weight now, kind of thing. Or
finding ways to motivate yourself, tracking, taking photos, weighing yourself, different things that you can do to motivate yourself.
Yeah.
It's helpful to kind of keep you till you build that habit and ritual. Because I think that's the tough part for people. Because changing habits is a tough thing. Like changing habits, if your regular routine is just getting up, watching a little bit of TV or something like that, or drinking a coffee, having a donut, and then all of a sudden you're going to like eat protein and go to the gym, that's a tough thing to break, right?
It is.
So you need to find ways to motivate yourself to do that till that's something you like better than the other thing.
That's right. Yeah. And small little changes are the start. Lots of times, people have many things that really would be helpful for them to change. And we talk a little bit about all of those things, and then we just pick one. Like, okay, let's start with this. Okay. And so we're going to work on this, and we're going to fine tune it. We're going to get you feeling better and feeling good around that. Yeah. But, most people, when they start something new, it's hard, like that, we say that we do hard things in our space carefully, and that's the whole idea.
Well, that's the reason to have a personal trainer though too, right? Because sometimes having somebody to motivate you, having somebody tell you how to do, especially if you've never done it in your life.
Yeah.
If you've never done weight training, it's really, it's kind of even dangerous. I don't know, like depending on how bad you are, like bad motion can lead to injury, right?
Yeah, incorrect movements for sure. There's risk of injury, definitely. And particularly for women who are going to want to lift heavier, they want to be good at the
fragile bones.
Good at the lighter, at the lighter first, and then graduating. And we want to make sure that they're working the right amount of weight for their particular stage of life, their fitness level, and
skeletal structure,
all of that too. Yeah. And you talked about, motivation. In my opinion, I don't believe that I can motivate anybody. I think motivation is intrinsic. Yeah. But I can inspire people, and I can hold them accountable and encourage them. And so that's my role.
You can help them till they build that habit and ritual, right? Because they got to come there at first. You can't go and get them off the street and drag them in, right? They got to come there. And then from that point on, and I would say this to people, like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, it's a tough thing. I know when I quit smoking.
For sure.
The times from not smoking, the urges got further apart, but they got stronger to go back to smoking. So you just have to just continually build on that, right? Until you kind of, now for me, working on it's addiction, right? Like I need to go, otherwise I'll get anxiety, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's helping all kinds of other things as well. Yeah. Again, that consistency is really going to see the outcomes. And the whole idea with showing up consistently, that's the other thing that we want to talk about for this to change, for women to do these changes. There's other things that you also can be doing, but they can also be done in the middle of the things you love to do. So if someone loves to run and they like to do run longer, then in the middle of their run, they can actually put some high intensity interval training sessions in there.
Like some sprinting and stuff like that.
Some sprinting if they're runners.
Drop down, do some push-ups.
If they're biking, like me on a mountain bike, I can do it in there. And that the sprint interval training, which is just like short and hard, you can do Tabatas for that, which is calisthenics, right? Where you work really super, super hard, get that heart rate high, then you recover, right? Airdyne bikes are really great for that sort of thing as well. Yeah. So some changes, it's a hard conversation to have with some people, and it's a hard thing to also, as a woman who's been in the athletic space for a long time, I've seen a lot of changes, and this education that's coming out for women is just such a it's just such a great thing to see, because women are now starting to reclaim their own wellness by getting into the weight training, strength training aspect. So
lots to unpack there.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. So reach out with questions. Like for sure.
We'll put a form at the bottom, but Liz Sage on Tut Street, Team Fitness. I'm going to say best trainer in Kelowna, and lots of knowledge. And I think with all that experience you have, plus you've got credentials in so many other areas, you're also a
registered clinical counselor, kinesiologist. Yeah. So been around.
Lots of different things. Yeah. So more holistic.
Well, yeah, I think, the body and the mind work together. I mean, it was one of the
Body, mind, and spirit.
best things I ever did was getting my master's in counseling, because it really helps me with behavioral change with
I mean, I
coaching.
based my whole life around body, mind, spirit, right?
Yeah.
So struggle and emerge, all those things, right? So I think the food is such an important part of it too, though. But then movement is such another part of that, right? So
yeah, well, it's the triad, right? You've got nutrition, you've got your fitness, and you've got your lifestyle, right? And so all of those things come together. So lifestyle would be things like sleep, wearing a seatbelt, not smoking, lifestyle choices, right? And we know about the nutrition, and then of course the fitness.
So if you don't want to do this stuff, if you think it's too hard, you can come to the AI Summit and hope a robot can take over your body. We're holding the AI Summit on September 27th. Well worth your time to come. There may be opportunities for you to move your mind into a robot or something.
Who knows?
But you're probably better off with the sure thing and actually eating better, exercising, and having a plan to have a better health span.
Absolutely.
I put my money there first, but hey,
Me too.
I'm going to the AI Summit as well. I'm going to play the odds.
Exactly.
And we thank you for watching Kelowna Now.